Well, Brad, thank you so much for joining me on the ODAT Chat podcast.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I discovered you online. I'm not even sure how. Maybe it was the Psychology Today article that was done on you about hypnotherapy, but I was reading some of your information online and I was like, I have got to talk to this guy because
Well,
for.
thank you.
So you're a psychotherapist. Looks like you've been doing this for more than 25 years. You're
Mhm.
certified in addiction. You're a certified addiction professional and certified clinical hypnosis. Is that right?
Yes, I'm certified in clinical hypnosis and a certified addiction professional and a psychotherapist.
And I was like, okay,
So I do all three,
that's
and
a
I
lot of
incorporate I,
stuff.
I incorporate that all into treatment as well,
Yes.
because there's so many ways to utilize different theories and techniques, that really need to be customized to the patient's needs and their learning styles. But
Absolutely.
it all gets done. It all gets
It all gets done. That's amazing. Yeah, and what you said has been my experience. I mean, no two people are exactly the same. I think
done. Right,
that's
huh?
why treatment is difficult. Like, as there's no one prescription that fits everyone, so it's
Yeah, that's
important
right.
to have people who understand
Uh-huh.
the overarching problems and
Hmm.
solutions that are available for every single person. So
Uh-huh.
um, I've just, before we jump into, I want to cover a couple of things. We're going to go over something that you developed called the fire extinguisher. It's a relapse prevention. I have a PDF that I have sitting on my
Hmm.
screen, and we'll go over it and make sure that it's available to people so they can just fully listen. Like if you're listening, I don't want you to feel like you have to take notes. You can download it later.
Okay, that's a good idea, huh?
Yeah, yeah. If you're driving,
Mhm.
doing dishes, I
Yeah,
don't
right, right.
know.
It's another good idea to take notes while you're driving.
Yeah, you can just listen the first time and then download it later and do it for yourself.
Okay, all right.
And I understand that you also train professionals in this
Yes,
methodology as
yeah, I
well.
try. I'm training professionals this model because it's it's different, it's unique, it's a new concept in relapse prevention, and hopefully the professionals will pick up this technique and use it with their clients and patients,
Yeah.
because it's from what I've seen and heard from my patients and know about the dynamics of the technique, that it's probably the most potent technique there is and preventing a relapse. And then basically, of course, you have to utilize all your other relapse prevention tools, but this is the one that will, let's say, put out the fire of that extreme, those intense urges which become overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just a quick note, if you have papers on your desk that you're moving around, it's it's picking up on audio.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Okay, no problem. Thank you. Got it.
Okay. Anyway, so what we'll do is we'll go over the PDF, and then I am so curious about hypnotherapy, and I think that's probably one of the ways I found you as I was doing research on
Mm-hmm.
hypnotherapy hypnotherapists, because in the work
Mm-hmm.
that I do with people, I find that it's very difficult to really, we are so self-deceived that it's difficult to identify those negative limiting beliefs,
Uh-huh.
subconscious beliefs, and then to like reprogram that thinking. It's very difficult.
Uh-huh.
And it's my understanding that hypnotherapy helps with that. Could you talk a little bit about what it is and how it works?
That's a good thing. When you said self-deceived, that concept is basically a factor of what you experience and what you believe to be true, because it is true for you, and what the belief system that you've learned ever since your formative years. So people with low self-esteem, they feel very negative about themselves, and as much as you say, I want you these positive affirmations, for 2 weeks, and they don't do it, or they do it 1 week, doesn't work. Doesn't work because saying I'm talented, I'm worthy, I deserve respect is good, but when you're saying those messages against 30 years of messages say you're no good, you can't do it, you're worthless, it's going to take a while, because one of the ways that the subconscious mind does learn is through repetition. So basically, I guess I have to start with the concept of the mind, the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. The conscious mind is that part of the mind that is active all day long. It's thinking, it's calculating, it's making plans, it's thinking about what they're going to say, the interactions, everything the entire day. What's for dinner, where we're driving, all that stuff is going on, and it's active, and it's mathematical, and it's analytical, and it's energy. It's energy using. It uses a lot of energy. So at the end of the day, you begin to get sleepy, you get tired. Now, basically, most of the times, it's not your body that's tired, it's your mind that's tired, because it's been working so hard. So when we sleep, that part of the mind basically shuts down. And then it rests for hopefully 8 hours, and then you're ready to go for the next day, recharges. Now that, like I said, that happens when you're aware and when you're in your conscious state. But there's another part of the mind called the subconscious mind. This is the part of the mind that is always recording everything that we do, every experience we have, every sensation we experience, every belief we have, our thoughts, our emotions, the emotions we've experienced. And that is always there, and always recording, always aware, self-aware, but it doesn't come to the conscious awareness. It's always working, but it's below the conscious mind. For example, when you, for example, everybody goes in and out of hypnosis every day, and I can tell you when you first lay your head down on the pillow and you start to drift away, you're not really asleep, but you're not really awake, right? And then in the morning, the same thing. Well, that window between those two states is a hypnotic state. So hypnosis is natural. It's natural. We all go through it, and we do it every single day, but we don't really realize. Or you're driving someplace in 2 hours, you get there, and you don't even remember driving.
Right.
So where were the directions coming from? They were coming from your subconscious mind. And the way that the subconscious mind learns is through repetition, through trauma, and it can be accessed directly through hypnosis.
Now, when you say it can be accessed directly through hypnosis, so is it fair to say, I mean, I've heard people talk about, like when you were talking about falling asleep or just waking up, it's like
Mm-hmm.
those beta brain waves. I don't even know if
Oh,
that's the
yeah.
right term. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a form of just like your mind is relaxed? And is that a time that you can kind of insert positive messages into the
Well,
subconscious mind?
you can, if you're exposed to those subconscious messages.
Mm-hmm.
For example, let's say you put on a CD,
Mm-hmm.
of positive affirmations,
Okay.
this continuous, an hour worth of, and you listen to that. And even if you're asleep, your subconscious mind is absorbing those messages. And eventually what happens, depending upon the receptivity of your subconscious mind and your desire to make those changes, it will absorb those new thoughts and new beliefs, and then it will replace and supplant the old beliefs and the old thoughts and value systems. So basically, that's how it works. And, like I said, the reason that you can do it in your sleep is because your conscious mind is not analyzing it. It's just you just hearing it, and your subconscious mind is recording it and then integrating it. And eventually, what happens is those beliefs will begin to take root in your subconscious mind, and then they will grow, and you will find that you begin to feel differently. You begin to think differently. And this is not, on a conscious level. This is just happening because in the subconscious level, you believe different things. Your mind absorbs different beliefs, and it supplants the negative beliefs, which allow the positive beliefs to then influence your conscious behavior, because uh, our conscious our behavior is basically mostly influenced by our subconscious mind, by our feelings, by our emotions, by our past experiences, by our beliefs. And even if we, even consciously, we know we shouldn't do this, the subconscious mind says, wait a minute, this feels good, this is great, this is bad, but this is great. And I know there's a desire, a deep desire to repeat that experience because it's so rewarding. And so basically you have a clash of the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And generally, eventually the subconscious mind wins because it's so powerful, because emotion is
Wow.
so powerful, influencing our behavior.
It's my understanding that emotion rules logic. Like, even I've been a sales professional for the last 10 years, and they say that
Mm-hmm.
people buy emotionally and
Uh-huh.
justify
Mm-hmm.
logically.
Uh-huh.
And I feel that that's the case when people are moving throughout their life and making decisions about who they're going to spend time with,
Uh-huh.
what kind of job they're going to get, how they move through the world. And
Mm-hmm.
as you were talking, what kept coming up for me is, why beliefs are so important. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I'm thinking, is that people experience a situation. Let's say it's an exchange with a
Mm-hmm.
colleague or a
Uh-huh.
friend or
Uh-huh.
something,
Uh-huh.
and things don't go well. They walk away and they assign meaning to that experience. Well, oh, it
Uh-huh.
must mean that they don't value me.
Uh-huh.
I'm not smart. Maybe I did something, like I did something wrong, or they're a bad person. And where does that idea of assigning, if your belief is that people are not good or that you're bad, then isn't the belief dictating what meaning you assign? And so you're just
Uh-huh.
sort of like, you make a decision about the world and then you just look for evidence, to
Well,
support your
exactly.
belief.
What you believe manifests in your conscious life.
Hmm.
So all these self-defeating thoughts, other people, situations, they're running automatically. They've been going on for decades for some people. So that you believe that deep in your subconscious mind, and what you believe is true for you. That's your truth. So therefore, that's how you interpret the external world. So, for example, you go to work and your boss is in a really bad mood, and he walks by with a very angry expression. You think, wow, I must be in trouble. I must have been doing something wrong. And all day long, you worried at the end of the day, you're going to get fired. Finally, he calls you down to the office and, this is it. Job's over. He says, listen, Brad or Joe, I just want to let you know that of all the employees, you produced the most, you've been the most reliable. And because of that, and you've been here the longest, I want to give you a promotion into management and give you a significant increase in your pay. And just want to let you know how we appreciate the work you're doing. So thanks a lot. We'll talk a little more about this next Monday. Have a good day. So basically, for the most part, you were worrying all day about what's going to happen. You were projecting,
Right.
the worst,
Projecting.
because that's what you think. That's how you think. You predict the future based upon the past.
Based
So
upon the past, right?
right, huh? And that past is fortified in your belief system.
Right.
And so therefore, as you said, whatever situations occur, you associate with your beliefs that you've learned, which have been repeated for years and years and years. So
Right.
because of that, that's how you live, and basically for the most part, you live in a world that's negative, that's self-defeating because of your thoughts. And the bottom line is, you create it. You
Right.
created it. I mean, and you didn't really create it yourself. I mean, we were in an environment where you were exposed to those kind of thoughts and those behaviors in your family of origin. I'm not going to blame anybody, but that's the way it happens. And that's what you absorb. That's what you believe. And then as life goes on, you carry those beliefs, and they manifest themselves in all of the situations in your life, especially relationships.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about, assigning meaning to things. So if you have
Yes,
this
uh-huh.
belief that you're not smart or not good enough, or
Right, uh-huh.
others don't love you for whatever reason, then that just
Yeah, right.
reinforces that. And it's my understanding that a belief is just an idea that's repeated over and over again. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious, when you work one-on-one with people, how do you help them identify? Because because those beliefs can be so part of our framework and our makeup that they're hard to identify. How do you help people identify what those negative beliefs are
Well, basically, for the most part, by their behavior.
by the
You know, what
behavior?
what are you doing in this relationship? Why are you allowing people to manipulate you? Why are you um, worrying about your friends or your wife before you, and making your life miserable, and basically wasting your energy, or giving all your energy away to other people to make them happy or please them. And in reality, they don't really appreciate it. And so therefore, the first thing I have to do is identify the behavior, and
Mm.
connect it to a feeling, or not a feeling, a thought. And what's the thought? Well, you know, uh, if I don't do what they want, they won't like me anymore.
Mm.
Or I'm afraid if I say it, I'm going to get in trouble. There's going to be a confrontation. But in reality, um, it doesn't matter if they like you anymore, because that's not no, that's not the goal of recovery, is to like and love yourself and be whole yourself. So what other people think is not, you should not let that rule your life. And if you allow that to happen, they will, because you will attract to you someone that's on the opposite pole. If you're passive, you will attract an aggressive person, because that's what you believe that you should be treated. So I can see that now. I can say, well, wait a minute. Now, is that really true? Is that the truth? And then we'll say, wait a minute, that's an irrational belief. That's really not true. Now I have a belief. Now I've identified a belief that's irrational, has been manifesting itself and repeating over and over again. It's causing someone to be unhappy and miserable. And you can see it in relationships as well, couples and stuff like
Absolutely.
that.
No,
You know,
this is, if I'm sorry to interrupt you, but as you were talking, I realized what you were talking about is seeking external validation versus internal validation.
yes, and
And
that exactly, huh?
and I have had in my own experience, like
Mhm,
before I got sober, well, even after,
mhm,
let's be honest, it takes a
mhm.
while to readjust from seeking
Sure, huh?
external to internal validation.
Hmm.
When we're dependent on external validation, then it's very difficult to manage your emotional state, because external things are beyond your control. So as they fluctuate, then your internal state fluctuates.
Exactly. In other words, your emotional states are triggered internally by the emotional events that go on and the people around you. So
Right.
again, one of the goals of recovery is to take back that control of your life, and realize that you don't have control over anybody's behavior but your own. and
Right.
and you can allow, and basically when you do these things, you're allowing people to take control of your life, but you don't have to.
You don't have
And it
to.
doesn't matter. And again, like I said, it doesn't matter what they think, because that belongs to them, not you. So yes, it's important to realize, why am I feeling so miserable? Well, because you know your husband treats you this way all the time, or your kids do this, take advantage of you, or your work. All these relationships are relations that are mirroring the belief system that you have, and then they're
Yes.
validating that belief system. Has been doing it for years and years. So basically, you're that's what you're drawing to you. Now,
Right.
what happens when you change that belief system is you change the external world. The people in your world change because you no longer believe that, and internally you gain more control over your thoughts and your emotions. So
Yeah.
that's how it works. And then basically that's the path of recovery. I have a formula for my, and basically the one thing that generally happens with addictions, compulsions, things like that, is people have learned or not learned to accept their emotions.
Right.
They avoid their emotions. In other
Hmm.
words, they're emotionally void. They don't really understand emotions, and they run away from them. And that's what addiction is. That's what gambling is. That's what unhealthy relations, is a form of escaping unhealthy feelings or unhappy feelings. But the bottom line is, you see, those feelings are telling you something very important about the state of your life. And those feelings are real. If somebody says you shouldn't feel like that, that's irrational. How do you know how I should feel or what my experience is? You don't know. This is what I feel, and it's okay for me to feel this. Maybe rationally, my thinking is not in balance, and I could change my thinking. But the bottom line is those feelings are important, and in order to be whole, I have to accept those feelings and not avoid them, to allow them to be experienced them, because as we know, feelings and thoughts are constantly changing, aren't they?
Absolutely.
So if you're hurt, if you're disappointed, if you're embarrassed, if you're upset or irritated in the morning, in the afternoon you'll feel happy, or your thoughts would be negative, you think different thoughts. So basically there's an ebb and flow, there's a flow, a mental flow, an emotional flow of states going on, and it's always, temporary. It's
Right.
transient. And
Yes.
we all know this because this is what we experience. But when we begin to try to avoid those feelings and or get attached to those feelings, then then um, then that's where we begin to get unhealthy, internally. And that's one of and basically there are two reasons why people that drives. I'm going to get basically into the fire extinguisher
Sure.
uh, model, is that people are driven by their emotional states,
Hmm.
and with addiction and other relationships, so to speak, the two primary motivating factors are the desire for pleasure
Hmm.
and the desire to escape pain.
Right.
And that's natural. That's programmed in every human being. We all want pleasure. We all want to avoid pain. It's natural. And and biochemically, we're programmed that way as well. So um
Should we jump
so
into the fire extinguisher PDF? Do you mind if I?
yeah, we could do that. That might be worth that. That will give us more insight into the hypnosis part of this model.
Yeah, because and I do want to circle back to because I have in my own recovery experience those sort of epiphanies that you get, like you see something for the first time and it can
Uh-huh.
be really helpful. It's like, oh, but it's just because I see a behavior or I see something doesn't mean that from then on I'm going to behave perfectly. Right. Like just like the
No.
awareness is helpful, but it's not like a cure all. That's why I was so interested in the hypnotherapy. It's like once I recognize, like I'll just share with you this one belief that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't recognize that it was a recent epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
My father passed away last year, and
Mm-hmm.
I was doing some, recovery work around my relationship with my dad. He was a great guy. Um, but I had an experience in high school where I made drill team, which is like a cheerleader type thing,
Okay. All right.
and I was at a school where I was new. I was the new girl, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't I didn't. They were all rich kids, and I didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
good enough. I was from the wrong side of the tracks, and I
Mm-hmm.
made the drill team, and I thought this was going to be the thing that saves me. Like I felt horrible about who I was. I had really low
Uh-huh.
self. I thought this was going to be the thing that saves
Right,
me,
right, right.
and my father told me that I couldn't do it, that I was going to have to quit because pretty early on, because he said it was because of my grades. But what I
Uh-huh.
knew for sure was that it was about the money. He grew up in the Depression era,
Right,
and
uh-huh.
he didn't see this as something that was really valuable, and he used my grades as the excuse
Uh-huh.
for so it was like he could let me have this thing that I thought was going to heal me, but he chose not to. So that fast forward to like recovery,
Uh-huh.
it's like my relationship with my higher power, I sometimes don't have trust, or like I believe that God is all powerful, but I don't think God is going to give me what I really want, like, which is like the healing or whatever. And then I realized, oh, I sort of superimposed this, negative limiting belief
Yes, uh-huh.
about my higher, like for my dad, onto the higher power. Like God can, but he won't necessarily do it for me.
Well, that's a
And
good
that
point.
was,
Good. Yeah.
I was
Good.
amazed. I was like, oh my gosh. Well, okay, so I have this awareness, but moving forward from that, as I move throughout my life, I still have like that self-reliance
Uh-huh.
thing, because I feel like I have to do it, because if I don't do it, God's not going to do it for me. Like
Right,
I,
uh-huh.
I, I have to do it. So is that sort of like one of those things that hypnotherapy can sort of help me change that belief that God actually will help me?
Uh-huh. Well, I think that's a good point. No, it's a good point. One thing you mentioned is extremely important. The first step in change is being aware,
Right.
developing awareness. Because if you don't know what it is, how can you change it?
Hmm.
Now that you know how, even if you know what it is, it doesn't mean you're going to change it.
That's the tricky
Because
part.
that's why people can be in therapy for years talking about the same thing every week, and
Yeah.
nothing is. They can tell you everything about their problems in their childhood, but nothing has happened
The beliefs are still
because,
the
yeah,
same.
because yeah, nothing has happened because they're not changing their thoughts, their beliefs, and their behaviors. And basically, for 2 years, they've been paying me, so much money and getting nowhere. I won't do that. If something, if I'm not making, if the patient making progress, and they're just repeating the same thing over and over again, I said, I'm not helping you. I'm sorry, but I'm not. I don't feel ethically right taking your money for this. This
So
is big. But
so does
again, but getting back to that question. So here's someone who's aware of it, knows all about it. Like the person's relapsing in AA and alcoholic. He's sitting at the bar, getting drunk, and telling the other guy all about AA and all the steps. Well, he knows it,
Mhm.
but he's not applying it. Therefore, what's happening is the desire is not there. The desire for change is not there. You see, um, nobody has to do anything. If I tell you, you have to do this, or this, you don't have to do anything. You can stay in bed all day. But of course, there are natural consequences, aren't there?
Mhm.
We do things because we want to do them.
Right.
We do things because we can, and people, in recovery want to recover because exactly there's basically one main motive because they don't want to suffer anymore.
Right. Right.
So I'll make this sacrifice, and I'll give up these behaviors so that I can have something else. And
Right.
I'm willing to do what it takes, whatever it takes, to make that change. So basically,
Right.
when it comes to higher power of God, basically it's allowing, that spiritual aspect of your life to be effective. Because basically you don't believe it will be.
Well,
And
that's kind of what I was getting at, is the so I recognize I have this limiting belief. Like, so I
mhm,
have the awareness, I have the,
right, huh?
using my example, I have the awareness. And so how do I change that subconscious belief? Do I need specific, like in that time before I, like probably in hypnotherapy, I would sit with you and, you know, would you, it's like you get to that relaxed place. Do you then, is it specific to my situation where you would say, God can and will help
Right.
you,
I
or?
might say, you've been doing behaviors, that would uh would stimulate this happening. However, you feel, you're believing that it's not happening. And it's okay to let those beliefs go now, because you
Mm,
want to let go of those beliefs, because when you do, you're going to find out all the help that's available for you. And this is pleasant and this is enjoyable, and it makes things so much easier. And you want that to happen. And so because of that, it's easy to let go of those self-defeating thoughts that nobody can help you, especially your higher power. So
mm,
once you let that go, and you're letting it go right now, right at this very moment, you're letting go. You begin to experience how that higher power is able to help you and work with you. And so therefore, I just basically what I did, I gave you a number of hypnotic suggestions,
right.
and you were listening, and even if you didn't, listen to all those things, all those messages were permeating into your subconscious mind. And so now your subconscious mind has more information, and it
Yeah.
will process that information, and you'll begin to believe that it's okay to not to be skeptical or to be afraid. You can let that go, because the rewards are going to be so great, and you're going to be so happy when it happens. And so now basically I've related to your subconscious mind a set of expectations that you believe are going to happen. And
A
like I
set of
said,
expectations. That's really
yeah,
smart.
yeah. So what you believe, when you believe that, then all those defense mechanisms that are preventing you from
Oh,
opening up to that higher power begin to subside.
why do we hang on? Why do we hang on to those defense mechanisms? Is it like a need for security?
It's fear, it's identity.
Identity. Yeah.
Yeah, who
The
we believe we are, and in our need to try to control life and
oh,
other people,
need to
because we're
control.
because we're afraid. It's fear.
Yeah.
Basically, it's fear. And
That's brilliant. To control, and it's usually like a need to control your state. That's why we use drugs and alcohol so that we can control how we feel.
exactly, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Um, Thank you for walking me through that because it's
Oh, my
like,
pleasure. My pleasure.
man, because it's like, I consider myself somebody that does the work. I'm willing. And, I've done all the things like turn it over and surrender and
Right.
recognize that I'm in self reliance and doing all this stuff.
Right. And you know
And I'm
what?
still
It's a good
holding
thing, because
on.
listen, when you work the steps, you are changing things, but it's not going to happen in a month. It's a
Yeah.
repetition of those
The
beliefs that are
repetition.
beginning to permeate into your subconscious. That's just like the slogans,
Right.
let go,
Right.
let God.
Right.
Easy does it, one day at a time. Basically, those slogans are messages to your subconscious mind that you begin to
Wow.
believe, and then you begin to believe them when you begin to act upon them,
Act
and you
upon
see
them.
them, we see them working. But like I said, that's why going to meetings and
Hmm.
repetition is so powerful, because you're reprogramming your mind, you're reprogramming your
Yes.
experience. Because basically when you're in your uh, regular environment, work, home, whatever it is, and you're being abused
Hmm.
and disrespected and put down, you have a different experience when you go to a meeting.
Yes.
You're respected, you're cared for, you feel loved. Now that is a different experience, and you begin to believe that you're lovable, because other people do love you, they do respect you.
Yes.
So basically the experience, repeating the positive experience over and over again, begins to change your belief system. Now, of course, like I said, it's a matter of repetition.
Hmm.
So it will, you heard people say, wow, one day I got it. I had that
Yes.
revelation. I understood what it really meant. See that, like you said, it's an epiphany. It's sort of a realization
Yeah.
of the concept in a very um, internal and a whole way, mind, body, and spirit. And you've assimilated that, and you totally believe it now. You
Right.
may have thought it, but you will never put it in context to where you believed it.
Yeah,
So
they talk in meetings about the longest drop is from your head to your heart, and I feel like that's the connection between understanding something intellectually and then really believing it.
exactly, when you do those things that are fearful, that that people tell you this is going to be good for you, try this, but you resist it because of your fear,
Yeah,
and you stay in the same place. But one day, listen, I'm going to try it. I've got nothing left to lose.
right,
I mean, the only thing I have to lose is my misery. You know,
right.
so why not give it a try? And you do it, and you get a different experience.
Yeah.
Then you begin to realize, wait a minute, why did I wait so long to do that? I could have done that 10 years ago,
Let
but
me
it
ask you.
doesn't. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I get
No,
excited
that's
about.
okay. That's right. That's right. By the way, yeah, I love these questions.
Yeah,
Thank
well, I'm so curious to. I've been listening to some
you.
lectures from Dr. Andrew Huberman, who's a neuroscientist at Stanford, and he talks a lot
Uh-huh.
about the dopamine reward system. And in my mind, that sort of explains a lot of things about why going to meetings and sharing is so helpful to people, because you're literally rewind, like you said, I'm not going to try these things until I have nothing left to lose, right? Then you go
Right.
and you're
Uh-huh.
like,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to share my truth at this meeting.
Uh-huh.
It's scary, but you finally take the action, like you were saying, act upon
Right. Uh-huh.
that stuff. And then you get all this positive feedback. And then
Right. Uh-huh.
it's my understanding that that's when dopamine is released, which is like the save button. And then,
Exactly.
and then you're,
It's basically your primitive mind, or
yeah.
your reptilian mind, the midbrain, that holds all the structures that really function on emotions, that are regulated by neurotransmitters, and the two main are dopamine and serotonin. And
Serotonin.
so, we get pleasure out of four basic experiences which drive our behavior. Number one, eating.
Mhm.
Number two, sex. Number three is hydrating the body. And number four is accomplishing a goal. We're the only species that gets pleasure out of accomplishing a goal. And you
Oh,
can see that in evolution, because every month there's a new cell phone, there's a new invention. We have to create new things, and accomplish new goals, because that creates pleasure for us.
yeah.
That
I didn't.
releases.
I didn't realize that. I am a sort of an addiction, a junkie for accomplishments, like
Uh-huh.
an achievement junkie,
Okay, it's
let's
okay.
say. Yeah, and I didn't realize that that is one of the four major goals. That's
Yeah, it
or
is.
four major sources of pleasure. That's amazing.
Exactly. No, so basically, when you're in a group of people that you feel comfortable with your that you're safe with, that are validating, it raises your serotonin pretty much.
Oh,
Serotonin regulates your moods.
oh, okay.
And people with low serotonin have depression. But it's been found that when you're in a group of similar people who are accepted, your
Mm,
serotonin level goes up. So you feel accepted, you
mm.
feel happy, you feel safe. And it's very interesting, when I talk about the reward, because let's say, for example, you're recovering, you have this powerful craving, and if you act upon it, you're going to jail. There's no doubt about it. You know, and you know it, and you're having the hardest time, resisting it.
Yeah.
But you call your sponsor, you go to a meeting, you do something else to distract yourself, you use prayer, meditation, all these different techniques, tools, which I call being in the fire department.
Right.
So I know the
That's
fire
it.
extinguisher is first, then you go to the fire department, which
Right.
has all the different tools strategies, um, and you make it through that period, and you're successful. You get a feeling of pleasure.
Accomplishment.
You
Yeah.
feel good about yourself. There's a certain sense of euphoria. Why?
Yeah.
Because you accomplished a goal, a very
That
important
is
goal. And that
amazing.
feeling, that euphoric feeling that you get, it's not in the same as, chemically induced, but it's natural.
Yeah.
And it's reinforcing, and it's powerful, and it's gratifying. So every time you get through one of those episodes, you get more and more rewarded for that. So therefore, the state of sobriety now becomes a rewarding experience.
Mhm. Yeah, and you know what's interesting is that like I see everything through the lens of recovery. And as I was
Mhm.
listening, you know, I know that celebrating the wins is really important. You know
Mhm.
that increases the you know, goal of that sense of accomplishment that I
Mhm.
didn't realize how important that was.
Yeah,
But we give out chips. We
exactly.
we clap for people that are
Right,
new.
right.
You know,
Exactly. You know, and you're getting that chip,
yes,
that's the pleasure. That's
yeah.
that'll like set off all this dopamine in your mind, and you'll get intense pleasure. You
Yeah,
know, you
it's like
it's a reward. Yeah,
recognition, like at a
exactly. Huh?
group, like the group recognizes you and rewards you, and it's
Reinforces
like
you,
reinforces the good
values
behavior.
you. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And again, when that happens, again, when you go into the limbic system right there, that part of the brain, it releases dopamine,
Mm,
and you get the natural sensation of pleasure.
mm,
So whenever you're engaged in any of these activities, there's a release of dopamine that creates a sensation of pleasure. However, and this is a good point. However, the normal amount of dopamine on a scale of 0 to 100, the max is 100 that your brain was ever programmed to experience. You know, naturally, you cannot experience more than 100. You have the most exciting, gratifying experience, you know, and you're at the 100, you're at 100. But there's no more. That's it. You can't go any higher than that. But now let's say you have a chemically induced experience, and you use a stimulant or an opiate or a depressant like alcohol or cocaine or marijuana, whatever it is, and it works on the neurotransmitters in that part of the brain, and it releases more dopamine. So an experience, the pleasure experience on, let's say, a stimulant like cocaine, methamphetamine, even alcohol, whatever it is, you know, your sensation of pleasure can be magnified times 100. So the sensation that you receive is way more than you would ever feel in your normal state, in your sober state. You can't. Your brain was not built to handle that. It's like going down the road in a car and going 150 miles an hour, and the car's only built to go 60.
right.
Eventually, you're going to blow the car up, and that's what
Right.
blows up. You know,
Yeah.
that's what affects the brain, so it gets so out of balance because all those chemicals in your brain regulate your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your sleep, your energy level. And so if you can think of all the imbalances that occur in your serotonin, your dopamine, and other neurotransmitters, that's why uh, your brain is not able to function properly.
Right.
And if your brain isn't functioning properly, then your mind can't. You know, it's like you're the driver, and your brain is the car. The car ain't going nowhere. The
Right.
driver, you know, that he doesn't have the capacity. So it can take up to 2 years for the brain to really heal and
Oh,
get back
two
into
years. That's
balance.
a really important point. I'm glad you said that because
Mhm.
that is one of the things I hear. And like,
Yeah,
I participate in a lot of Facebook recovery groups,
yeah,
and
yeah.
a
They
lot of
call that
people are.
post-acute pause, post-acute withdrawal syndrome. You've heard of that pause?
I have not.
Yeah, it's called post-acute withdrawal syndrome. And during that period of time, you feel out of balance. You know, your thinking is out of balance. Your coordination, and you think something is wrong, but really what's happening is your brain at that point in time is restoring itself back to its natural state. And
Mm.
it takes, you know, if you've
Two
been, if you,
years.
yeah, well, listen, you know, if you've been using drugs for 30 years, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it's going to take a while for your brain to get back into the healthy state. But even that time, think about it. You know, in order for you to change, we change by thoughts. We
Mm-hmm.
change by perceptions. And,
Thoughts and
you know,
actions.
yeah, and like I said, awareness. So the intellectual part, you know, the thoughts are extremely important,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in developing and shaping our behavior.
Yeah.
So, you know, um, it's much more difficult to understand and conceive of new thoughts,
Right.
you know, when your brain is not physically processing the correct way. So it
Right.
takes a long time for that to repair itself.
Well, and I just want to give hope to people that are listening that it's not like a 2 year period where you're never going to feel good again. I
Oh
think
no, you
that
feel good, yeah. And
yeah,
it's not always 2 years, it's 6 months to 2 years.
Yeah, and I still think that even within those 6 months, people can learn to recognize moments of joy, right? Sometimes
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah,
people
absolutely.
have like a bad experience, a moment where they have a bad experience and they go, I had a horrible day. Well, that's not
Uh-huh.
really true, right? Because throughout the day, they had moments where things went right. But I
Mhm.
think our minds are so used to attaching to the negative that we don't recognize moments of joy or
That's
happiness
that,
or
and
peace.
we perpetuate those thoughts and
Yeah.
ruminate on those thoughts, and where the mind goes, the emotions follow.
The emotions
And
follow.
and
So
I'll tell you, and what,
it's
yeah,
important to recognize, like, people that are early and recovered need to be mindful and intentional about recognizing things that are going right so that they can feel better right away in those early 6 months of sobriety, don't you think?
it makes sense, because you know, so that you can be mindful, which means being aware
Hmm.
of what you're thinking,
Yeah.
of what you're feeling, of what the situation occurring. Does it all match? And if I'm aware of it, then I understand it and I don't have to get attached to it, and I can let
Right.
it go and I can change the thoughts. So,
Yeah.
like I said, it all starts with awareness.
Yeah.
And it all starts with awareness. And so, therefore, like you said, okay, I felt bad this morning, but doesn't mean I have to have a miserable night.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Things can change. I can change my thoughts, situations can change. I'm receptive, and I'm not going to get stuck on the thought that because I was hurt this morning, that I'm
Right.
resentful this morning, I have to stay resentful all day long.
Yeah, you mentioned avoiding or attaching to feelings that we don't, that's a
Yeah.
choice. We don't have to do that. Hey, listen,
Right.
with the amount of time that we have, do you mind if I run you through the fire extinguisher PDF so that people can kind of familiarize themselves with it and then download it?
Yeah, that's fine.
I
Let's
think
do
that would
that.
be great. Okay,
That'd be
let's do
great.
that.
Huh? Okay.
Okay, so I'm looking at the form, at the very top of the form, EDM, experiential decision making, consequential feeling. So this is do you want to just describe the overall process, and then we can kind of, it looks like it's a three-step process.
hmm Well, experiential. We act upon what we experience.
Hmm.
We believe what we experience. That's the only thing that's true for us. Someone said you should believe this, but you didn't experience it. So if you don't experience it, you don't feel or believe it's true for you. You believe what you believe. For example, if you're using drugs, drugs are bad, drinking is bad, but you're having a great time, no consequence, no
Right.
problems. What do you
Yeah.
mean it's bad? It's good. You're
Yeah.
telling me it's bad, but my experience says it's good.
Yeah.
And so basically, at that point in time, why would I want to change that behavior?
Right. Yeah.
Because somebody else, I could because I'm going to be in trouble, and
Yeah.
that the opposite experience, I'm going to get, painful consequences or feelings. But so experience, the experience part is most important.
Okay.
I have to honor and validate everybody's experience
Hmm.
to understand why they do what they do.
Right.
And then the next step is attaching that experience to the feelings. Right.
So I'm looking at step one. So you mentioned, you described the experience, and there's a diagram on here that says line one is substance use during social or recreational phase, line two substance use during abuse or addictive phase. What is that
Well,
diagram meant to
that's good. I should have to explain this. On
yeah,
the right side in the top is pleasure and escape. That's 100. On the bottom
right,
is nothing. On the other side is pain and negative consequence.
right.
So that side is 100. Now, when most people start using drugs and alcohol, recreationally, socially,
Hmm.
basically their experience looks like this. Going from the left bottom to the right top, little bit of pain, no consequences, no problems. I'm not having problems. My wife is okay. The job is
Yeah.
okay. Kids aren't bothering me. Never got in trouble. Why should I stop? But now I've got a DUI. And I lost my job, and this happened again. And if I do it again, I'm going to lose my wife and kids. So now the next time that I drink again, I'm going to experience a little bit of pleasure and a lot of pain, right?
Hmm.
I'm going to experience, if I know from my experience that even though it feels good for an hour a day, the consequence is going to last for 2 years.
Right.
And I'm gonna be, miserable and disappointed that I did this because I knew what was gonna happen. And now I'm in this mess that's gonna take me 10 years to change and to repair for one day of pleasure,
Right.
right? So basically, the reason why patients come for therapy is this is their experience. Now
Right.
let's go on the other. So
Okay.
on the right side, so basically we went from the right side. I'm sorry, the right side to the top left side. So in other words, you were experiencing pleasure
Pleasure
and
to
basically escape, which is a rewarding experience also. It
pain.
was working for you. It was good.
Yeah. Hmm.
So in the beginning, there was no negative consequences. It was all good, 100%. But now, when you do it, your experience has shifted because now when you do it, you get a little bit of pleasure and escape, and then you get a whole lot of pain and suffering. Isn't that
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So in other words, you get ounces of pleasure and escape versus tons of pain. And I don't have to tell you this because you know it,
Right.
because this is true for you. This is your experience. You know this, and because this experience, you don't want to repeat this experience anymore. You don't want to feel this way anymore, right?
Well, that's kind of what, but that's kind of what addiction is about. It's like, I mean, I had that experience myself is when I knew it was bad for me, but I couldn't stop, right? Like
Exactly. But
I
on
lost
the
the
other hand,
ability.
when you came to the point, you said, "Listen, I can't take this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm
Yeah.
going to change that. Whatever it takes. I'm going to stop because I know it was good, but I know. Listen, I don't want to go to jail anymore. I don't
Right.
want to lose
Right.
my family. I know, why? Because I know how bad that feels. You
Right.
know, I know the experience of pleasure. I know the experience of relief, but
Hmm.
I also know the feelings of pain and suffering.
Right. And
You know,
then,
it,
sorry to interrupt, but I'm looking at the document and under step one, you go through the experience and then it moves to, the it talks about cravings, urges, thoughts, and then you go to pause. What is the process on the step two where it's talking about pausing? It says go to
that's
the pause mode and
right, right. I call it pause for the cause.
pause for the cause. I like
And the
that.
cause is not suffering anymore, avoiding
Okay.
pain. Okay.
Yeah.
Also pause and reflect. So, um, so the first thing is, we have to recall because we know that cravings and urges are going to arise, even if
Yeah.
you don't want them to, because those memories of your subconscious mind. And you go
Okay.
by this place where you see a bar, and it just seems just as for no reason your car takes a right hand turn into the bar,
Yes.
because you get this craving that's so
That
powerful.
many times. Yeah.
Those are the associations or triggers
Yeah.
that occur. So, um, so it's going to happen, and they're going to be
Hmm.
very intense for a
Yeah.
long time,
Yeah.
and that's what causes relapse. And
Right.
then the reason is you want to have that experience again.
Right.
You want to feel that pleasure. You want that relief again because you know how good it feels.
Yeah. The
So, in
relief.
other words, what you've done is you've recalled the experience, and you've connected how it felt at that particular time. Now, when we get to the next step, is we're going to say, okay, listen, hold on 1 minute, 1 minute. Let's go back and remember the most painful feelings
Mm.
and consequences I've had because of my addiction, my abuse, even my compulsions, relationship, whatever it is. Every human being can use this, by the way,
Hmm.
because we all go through it. So if I were to say to you, Arlene, I want you to think about the most painful feelings you have experienced in your life directly related to your compulsion or addiction.
Hmm.
Right now, you could pull them up from your memory, couldn't you? You
Probably.
can
Yeah.
see you can see yourself in the scene,
Hmm.
to the people around you, and in addition to that, now you start feeling it, don't you?
Yeah.
You start feeling those, and those feelings are painful, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, now what we've done is we've pulled out, the feelings, desire, emotional desire for pleasure escape has come up. That's true. But now we stopped and we accessed our subconscious mind and pulled up the painful experiences. Now what we're doing was, we in the pain, that's the pain, the feelings, the painful feelings. Now what we're doing is comparing the feelings of pleasure or escape to the feelings of pain.
Right.
And so basically what you have is, you have, like I said, ounces of pleasure escape due to tons of pain. And how do you know that? Because you're feeling it right in the moment. It's
Right.
not an intellectual thing. You're feeling it right now.
Experiencing it.
As you're thinking about doing this action, you're thinking, whoa, I know this. I know how it's going to feel. It feels terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I do this, how I'm going to feel. And there's no way I want to feel that way again. When that happens, what you've done for the most part is you've compared feelings to feelings.
Mm.
So you're in your different perspective of decision. You're not using your intellect so much to make a decision as your emotions, but on the other hand, you have to use your intellect, because the next step is to use your decision making process, which is questioning: do I ever want to feel that way again? Is it worth feeling that miserable for losing my job, my family, my parents, my home, everything, my dignity? Remember when I was out in the street when I couldn't call anybody, how dejected I was, how embarrassed and humiliated I was. And
Right.
I'm feeling that right now. Right now I'm feeling those feelings. I'm also, it's the first thing I'm feeling, the excitement, it felt so good. Great, I love that. But now I know it's going to be there. That's true. It's going to happen if
Right.
I do that. But also, I know the reality is, when I do that, I'm going to have that same emotional experience again. And that's scary,
Right. Yeah. And what we're
So,
doing is really, thinking it all the way through. Like you don't
yes, but
stop at the
yeah,
pleasure, but you think it all the way
but
through.
but more than thinking, you're feeling it.
Feeling. Yeah.
You see,
Right.
you know, so when they say play the tape off, that's an intellectual process. But
Right.
when you see it and you feel the feelings, now you're in a different perspective,
Okay.
because you can think about it and you can see it, but it doesn't really have any impact, on your emotional state.
Right.
And therefore, the consequences overwhelm your intellect. Even though you know you shouldn't do it, your emotions and
Got it.
your emotions are more powerful than your intellect, and they
Right.
will manipulate your logical mind to come up with some reason why it's okay to do that.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's relapse justification. But the
Yeah.
bottom line is, so in other words, you you um you completely avoided the feelings,
Right.
which are the most important factors and ultimately in your acting, your behavior. So if I'm saying, wait a minute, I'd love to feel this way, and the bottom line is, it's actually true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know how good it feels,
Right.
and I want it, and I know I want it, but I know how I'm going to feel after it.
Yeah.
And there's no way on this earth that I'm going to do something to make myself feel that way again.
Yeah. No,
So,
I can see how this having this, man, I would think that if you're in early recovery, it'd be helpful to print this out and keep it in your car or in your
oh
purse
yeah.
or in your books or something.
Well, basically, what I do is I give my patients a little keychain, a fire extinguisher keychain,
Oh, that's
to have in
cute.
their pocket. But you
Yeah.
see, yeah. So basically now, you've gone from your emotional state, and now you go into your intellectual state. And the
Right.
question is it rational? Is it rational for me to do this when I know how much pain it's going to cause me?
Right.
So you do incorporate your intellectual mind,
Right.
but that's not the first thing. The most important thing is your
Is the
experience, what's
feelings.
true for you. Number two, how you felt when you had that experience. And number three, making a decision. Do you want to repeat that experience?
Making a decision.
And so basically what I have conceived is, what you're doing is when you pull up that pain, those painful memories, is you're filling your fire extinguisher up with atomic fire extinguisher powder. And when you
Yeah.
when you when you do that, then you spray it on the urges and cravings. And when that
Right.
happens, they go out. The fire goes out.
Yeah, fire goes out. I love
Fire
it.
goes out.
It's
So one of the slogans, and again, this is slogan based. When the fire of desire gets higher and higher, use your fire extinguisher to put out the fire.
that's good.
Don't. How about this one? Don't get burned again. Use your fire extinguisher to put out the fire.
Yeah.
So basically, those are and neuro-linguistic thoughts and
NLP.
words of slogans which you begin to incorporate on a subconscious level.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
because as I'm doing this, in addition, there's a hypnotic aspect
Oh,
to what I'm doing, and the messages that the client is getting within the presentation. In addition, I have a big fire extinguisher right beside me, and then what I'm doing, they're connecting what the ideas to the image. And I say now, the next time when
oh,
next time you get a craving, this fire extinguisher, this image is going to come right to the front of your mind.
that is really brilliant. That is so good. Yeah, I can absolutely see how that would work.
And
That's
and and
great.
because and then you can use it. You
Mm-hmm.
see, you don't have
Yeah.
to use it, but I tell you, you don't have to. You can relapse if you want. Go ahead.
Yeah.
If that pleasure is worth it to you, then you'll relapse. But
Right.
if you say, wait a minute, there's no way. I've got something to save myself.
Right.
I'm gonna take that fire and put out that fire, and then call the fire department.
That's
Call
right.
the
Call
fire,
the fire
call
department.
your sponsor, go to a meeting,
Yeah.
pray, read the
Yeah.
big book,
Do all the
just
things.
distract yourself with another activity,
Yeah.
exercise, whatever it is that gets you through,
Yeah.
do that, take out your toolbox of relapse prevention, because that'll put the fire, immediately, but you have to, maintain that,
Right.
and sustain that. So that's where, all the other treatment strategies and relapse prevention strategies that you've learned, that's where you now say, now I'm going to apply these
Got it.
because this will keep me safe.
Yeah, so this is like crisis prevention, and then you
Yeah.
once the crisis is averted, then you go back to maintenance and
Yeah.
self care
And it
and all
doesn't have
that.
to be really a crisis. It can be, you can use, just a thought, I mean, any time, but basically for the
Well,
most part,
for us drama queens, those thoughts are a crisis.
exactly. But, for the first part, most important, um, you have it available to you.
Yeah.
And you know that you can, before you relapse, by the way, and people say, Brad, I get the thought, I have no control, I lose control. And I say that's BS. Because if
Yeah.
you have a period of sobriety, your mind, your brain is restored, the parts of your brain that are responsible for logic and reason and judgment.
Hmm.
So whenever a craving comes up, yes, it comes up and you maybe have no control over it, but you're aware of it. In order for you
Yeah.
to act on that, you have to sign off on it. You have to make a conscious decision. I'm going to go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
So there's a window of awareness that you have from the time you get the thought and the emotional urge to when you actually create the behavior. And it could be an hour, it could be a week, whatever it is. But the
Yeah.
bottom line is, you always, at that point in time, you always have the choice.
And I would add to that another tool that I have found, as someone who's been practicing recovery for a long time, is that,
Hmm.
and the reason why, step 11 with the prayer and meditation actually gives you more pause, right? And you were
It does.
talking
It,
about
it, it
the
quiets the
pause.
mind.
Yeah.
It stills the mind. You basically, you focus your mind on a ideation or being quiet. And when that happens, basically, you go into a state of calmness, of peace.
Hmm.
Generally, that's the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being at peace. Finding that place within yourself that's constant, that's all,
Absolutely.
that's not changing,
Yeah.
that's in a way eternal, has always been, and being in that place,
Yeah.
experiencing that place, the more you experience it, the more you want to be there.
Yes, I
And so
agree.
that is so much greater than the experience of the pleasure or relief, because, and think about this, because the pleasure you can get or relief you can get out of uh, any kind of external behavior or any kind of compulsive behavior is limited. You cannot, that's limited. You only get so much. Like you said, you've maxed out. You can't eat any more turkey. You can't,
Yeah,
shoot any more heroin.
100%.
Nothing is happening. That's it. That's all. It's over. You've used up all the chemicals. But the feeling of peace and pleasure and serenity in that spiritual place within you, which is always there, which never changes, is unlimited.
Right. Yeah.
Unlimited. So basically, when you experience the potential that I can have unlimited peace and and uh, and security and feeling,
Security.
and love and peace, that is much better than the experience of the chemically induced or any other behavior
Right.
that creates external behavior that we can get attached to. So
Yeah.
looking at it in perspective, and that's where the spirituality comes in,
Yeah. No, I
because
agree.
that
I agree 100%. And I hate to cut you off. I'm sure we could talk about this all day long.
there's a lot, yeah, there's a lot
And
of
there's, yeah,
material. Yeah.
yeah. And so, but I do want to give you an opportunity to share how people can work with you and where can they find more resources. I know that you have some classes available for those that are professionals. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you or learn more about your work?
Well, most important is my contact information,
Mm-hmm.
bradtherapy@gmail.com, and my phone number, which is there. I also have a website, which is bradhaber.com, which isn't hard to remember. I remember
Yeah.
that one.
Well, I'll put
And
everything in the show notes. So
and
we'll
so
list
just
it all
just
there.
just contact me, and I'll do. I can't. I'm only licensed in Florida for psychotherapy,
Okay.
but I can do relapse prevention classes. And I do this for people in recovery. I
Okay.
hold a relapse prevention group every Monday from 7 to 8, and people in recovery can join in and learn the variety of relapse prevention strategies and basically gain more understanding, because you've heard knowledge is power.
Hmm.
Communication, and think about this, communication is the vehicle of recovery.
Yeah.
Knowledge is the fuel.
Got it.
So
That
when
is
you
really
when you
good.
when the knowledge uh, uh, makes awareness. So I teach all that. I also teach the fire extinguisher, and it's a revolving, repeating curriculum, but there are
Okay.
about 15 different topics, and it's not expensive. And I want to make everybody that needs it to come in, and we can make some arrangements, whatever it is,
That's great.
financially. But most important for the professionals, because I want the professionals to be able to communicate this, teaches to their patients,
Hmm.
because there's so much greater um, opportunities to help people avoid relapse,
Yeah.
because this
So
this
important.
this technique is so powerful. You see, it's so powerful. Everybody, I said, Brad, you know, this this saved my life. I was never able to stop relapsing. There was always that part missing, but when I had the fire extinguisher, it saved my life.
That's really beautiful.
And that's the gratifying part to me,
Yeah.
because I know that within this framework, and it's an existential framework, so to speak, that this is not being taught. And even in the psychotherapy world, we're relying mostly on cognitive therapies,
Right.
and we're basically dismissing the emotions. So we're not honoring the emotions. We're not encouraged to experience emotions, which is important. And then and tolerate it. I tell my patients there are four parts to the formula. Number one, recovery is you have to feel it. You have to let yourself feel it, not escape from it. Number two, you have to reveal it. You have to talk to somebody about it. You have to get it out. Number three, you have to deal with it in a different way. And when you've done that, the last step is healing it. So those 4 steps basically are the blueprint for recovery with almost everybody I work with. So as I said, I know I do trainings for professionals on the fire extinguisher model of relapse prevention, and I teach the entire technique and the theory behind it, because it's important for people to understand how this works, especially clinicians, on a theoretical basis. Because you can walk into a group, a group of patients and read off the handout, and there's basically there's nothing there to imprint this information. When I go in there, it's alive. The presentation itself is an experience, that makes an imprint. So again, it's the experience, the most important thing. So I teach the clinicians how to present this, how to make the impact, how to engage the patient so they grasp the idea, and then for the most important, realize that their patients are using it and they're
Right.
avoiding relapse. And basically, the bottom line is that's the most important thing in recovery for addiction is staying sober before
Right.
anything else.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
so so I
Very
want
good.
to disseminate this and teach it and have it, spread to all the clinicians and all the treatment centers. And in addition to that, it also applies to everybody. Anybody can relate to this
Yeah.
procedure because we
Absolutely.
all have it. So go to bradtherapy.com. My email is
Great.
bradtherapy@gmail.com.
Hmm.
And my phone number is 954 261 5901. And I will be happy to enroll you in the relapse prevention group, and very thrilled and excited that you're a clinician that wants to learn this and pass it on to your patients. And
Excellent.
I'm very grateful that we had a chance to talk about this one, in your interest, in this technique and, the hypnosis, because after I presented it, now I can do a hypnosis session and reinforce it hypnotically.
Yeah,
So,
that's great. No, it's
you know,
really
so
smart. I really appreciate all the work that you're doing. You have lots to share, and so I thank you so much for your time today. And I'll leave all the links
uh-huh.
for ways people to get a hold of you in the show notes. And I just want to thank you so much for your time, and I look
That
forward to
Thank
speaking
you,
to
Arlene.
you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You have a
So
great
have
day.
you too. Bye.
Thanks.